Welcome to section 13.5, solve an equation by zero factor property. So here we have an example where it's in factor form, 2x times x plus 1 times x minus 4. Now what I mean by solving an equation by the zero factor property, it means that we're going to set each factor equal to 0. So once you have a equation in factor form, whether it's in factor form or not, and it equals to 0, you can actually solve by setting each factor equal to 0 and solve for the variable. So in this example, I'm going to set each factor that has a variable, the 2x, the x plus 1, and the x minus 4. Now, you can only do this once you have gone into factor form. So 2x equal to 0, x plus 1 equal to 0, and x minus 4 equal to 0. And then you're just going to start solving for x. And it could be any variable that you have, as long as you're solving for it. This one will be x equal to 0, because 0 divided by 2 is 0. Here I'm going to subtract by 1 on both sides, so x equals negative 1. Here I'm going to add 4 on both sides, so x equals to 4. So my solution is x equal to 0. And you can write it like this, or like this. And I'm going to put the numbers in order, negative 1, 0, and 4. So you can write either form, doesn't matter to me. As long as you state all the answers for x. So again, solving by zero factor property is you just send each factor, the one that has a variable, equal to 0, and then just solve for the variable. So in this example, we have 2 times x squared minus 5 equals to x. So before we can start solving, we have to put in factor form. And in order to factor form, we have to have everything on one side, meaning that the whole equation is equal to 0. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to distribute the 2 to this set right here, because it's next to, or I should say outside the parentheses. So 2 times x squared, 2x squared, and then 2 times minus 5, so minus 10 equal to x. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract x on both sides so that I can have the right side become 0. So on the left side it's going to be 2x squared, and I'm going to put it in order, minus x minus 10 equal to 0. So once I get the whole equation equal to 0, I can start factoring. So A is 2, B is negative 1, and then C is negative 10. So once I identify A, B, C, I'm just going to start factoring the usual way. So the top, A times C, 2 times negative 10, negative 20. And then the sum and difference is negative 1. So from there, I would say that the factors for negative 20, multiply that into negative 20, and the sum and difference is negative 1. So I would say negative 5 and positive 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor this by grouping. So that means I also have the x, negative 5x, and positive 4x. So I'm going to put it up here for more space. So I'm going to start off with 2x squared. And then I could just put it with negative 5x, and then plus 4x, and then minus 1. Sorry, minus 10. So here's my left side, and the only thing common between these two terms is the x. So x going to the outside, 2x squared divided by x, 2x, negative 5x divided by x, minus 5. Now the only thing in common on the right side is the 2. So I'm going to write plus 2 because it's positive. 2x divided by 2, 2x. Negative 10 divided by 2, minus 5. Alright. Notice how the expression in the parenthesis is exactly the same number, same sign, same everything. So I'm going to group the outside factors, my GCF, together. So x plus 2 in one group, and the other 2x minus 5 in the other, equal to 0. So I finished putting in factor form. Now I'm going to set each factor that has a variable equal to 0. So x plus 2 equal to 0, and then 2x minus 5 equal to 0. Here I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. X equal to negative 2. Here I'm going to add 5 on both sides. So 2x equal to positive 5. And then I'm dividing both sides by 2. So x equal 5 over 2. So my final answer is x equals negative 2. And x equals 5/2. And that is our final answer. So for this particular example, we didn't start off as a typical equation. So first I had to distribute, then I had to cancel out the x on the right side so that the whole equation will equal to 0. After that, we have a quadratic equation that we're just going to factor, and then once we're finishing it in factor form, we set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x.